Hey, what's up everybody, 8-Bit Flashback here. Today I'll be checking out the Roshambo Super Famicom Retro gaming case for the Raspberry Pi 3. I'll also be taking a look at the Roshambo controllers and a functional mini SSD cartridge that plugs right into the cartridge slot. So the Roshambo cases are just barely hitting the market, and they're going for about $35 with a power supply, and the option to buy SSD cartridges that work in that cartridge slot. The case also features a safe shutdown, a reset button, an eject button, and a red LED light. On the back of the case you'll find all your ports. You got the HDMI out, an Ethernet port, your power port in, and an extra USB port. And located on the side of the case is going to be access to your micro SD card. To assemble the case it's fairly easy, and you should be able to do it in under 10 minutes. And I will have a build video coming out here real soon showing you how to do this step by step. And after you're done assembling the case, if you want that power and reset button to be functional, you will have to install some extra software. So to start with, you want to install a fresh copy of RetroPie on your micro SD card. Once that's installed, you're going to access the RetroPie terminal by pushing F4 on your keyboard, and then enter this command right here. And after it's done doing its process, you'll want to type in sudo reboot and reboot the console with that power button in the on position, and your buttons should now be functional. And in order for this to work, that Raspberry Pi 3 will have to be connected to the internet. And I will go over this in greater detail when I do the build video and explain this process a lot better. And here's a quick size comparison next to a mini Super Famicom case, which I'd say is at about a 50% scale, and the actual Super Famicom, and it's right in the middle, so I'd say it's at about a 75% scale. And here's a look at the mini SSD cartridges, and as you can see the case or the shell for these SSDs is in the shape of a mini Super Famicom cartridge, and that goes right into the slot here. And you are able to eject that cartridge with ease just by pushing that eject button. And I would highly recommend not doing this while the power is on like I'm doing right here. I'm just doing this for testing purposes. To format my cartridges or transfer data to and from, I'm using this SATA adapter that has a USB 3.0 end on it, and this plugs right into my PC, and this transfers data at a fairly fast rate. And mine seem to have the best performance, formatting it with FAT32. And here is the Roshambo controllers, and the quality of these actually seems to be pretty decent. They seem to be built well, and the button layout on these reminds me a lot of a Wii U Pro controller. Now when you compare these to some of your high-end controllers like a PS4 controller or even a Wii U Pro controller, I wouldn't say these are near as nice, but for the price, these aren't bad at all. You can get the pair of these for only 20 bucks, and I think they look really cool next to the Roshambo case. The Roshambo cases come in a few different variations. The particular one in this video is for the Raspberry Pi 3, but I also have one for the Rock Pro 64, and they make a case for the Rock 64 as well. And I do have a video that covers the Rock Pro 64 case, and I'll make sure to leave a link in the description. And one really nice feature about the different Roshambo cases is the ability to use that mini SSD cartridge in all the different cases. And on top of that, I'm able to use the same exact cartridge on multiple different operating systems, such as RetroPie and Recalbox. And here in the near future, I'll be able to use a Retro Arena image as well for the Rock Pro 64. So these little SSD cartridges are my favorite feature about the Roshambo cases. And I guess my only complaint about these cartridges would be that they're a little bit small. They should be just a little bit bigger, but nevertheless, they're still very cool. So here's what I currently have running on my micro SD card running RetroPie, just Super Famicom. So now I'm going to go ahead and power this down and plug in my SSD cartridge and show you what I have running on there. And when I use that power button, that does initiate a safe shutdown. That way I don't have to worry about losing any system memory. Now let's go ahead and power it back up. And as you can see, I now have a bunch of different systems. I got the Atari 2600, the Atari Lynx, Famicom, Game Gear, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Master System, Mega Drive, 64, Neo Geo, Nintendo, PC Engine, PlayStation, 32X, Sega CD, and Super Famicom. And I've got all this on here without even using up a quarter of the memory on the SSD cartridge, so I have plenty of room left over to add even more games. Now let's go ahead and find a game to play, and we'll start with Super Famicom, and we'll try Mega Man. And as far as the controller goes, I have tried this in digital and analog mode, and it seems to be working just fine. I really haven't noticed any issues with it yet. And for all the games I've tested and played, everything seems to load just fine from the SSD cartridge. Everything plays and loads just like it would from the micro SD card. Now let's test out the analog sticks, so we'll try out a PlayStation game, and we'll pick Spider-Man. And in order for this to work, I did have to go inside the RetroArch menu and select analog mode, and once I did that, everything worked just like it should. Oh, and by the way, if you've never played the first Spider-Man for the PlayStation 1, you need to give it a try, because this is an awesome game, and one of my favorite Spider-Man games. And to help keep track of what's on your SSD cartridges, they do come with little white labels that you can write on. And if you are interested in getting a Roshambo case for yourself, you can head over to cloudmedia.com and you'll find cases for the Rock 64, the Rock Pro 64, and the Raspberry Pi 3. And on top of that, you'll be able to find controllers, and you can buy a pair of them or just one, and those SSD cartridges are available as well, and those come in the 120GB model, the 256, and the 512. Okay, it's time for me to get out of here, and if you like this video, if you could, hit that like button, and have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time.